Jamaica. Good evening, viewers, and welcome to tonight's regional news. We begin with the news out of Barbados. A hybrid national identification card to be introduced in Barbados in a matter of weeks will have a mobile application version, and there is the possibility of citizens being able to use it for travel, officials said Wednesday. The officials discussed the benefits of the Barbados National Digital ID, which is to be rolled out by the end of March at an online forum hosted by the Barbados International Business Association in association with PricewaterhouseCoopers under the theme E-Readiness Digital ID. Antonia Litcott, project manager in the Ministry of Innovation, Science and Smart Technology, acknowledged that the current 2-week lockdown affected the planned introduction of the digital ID. But he gave an assurance that an aggressive education campaign would be introduced in the coming days. Litcott was careful not to go into too much detail about the new digital ID, which will be made of a PVC material. He said it would have several physical and electronic security features and allow individuals to access a range of government services, which he said would be publicized over time. And now for some news out of Jamaica. Organizer of the annual 10,000 Men and Families March in Spanish Town, Jamaica, Bishop Rohan Edwards, says the time has come for pastors to arm themselves to protect their congregation from vicious men. Speaking against the background of the murder of Andrew Lowe Garwood, who was shot dead on Sunday by a lone gunman while worshiping at the Agape Christian Fellowship Church in Falmouth, Trelawney, Edwards called on pastors to put in place all the necessary security features in churches to protect worshipers. I quote, "I made this call before and I am saying again, it's time for churches to put proper security mechanisms in place to protect the flock, including pastors arming themselves," end of quote, said the firebrand bishop who oversees the Lighthouse Ministry churches across the island. Edwards said persons must feel secure in church and every church leader has a responsibility to protect the people who attend their church. We now turn our attention to Brazil. The Brazilian government announced Wednesday it was negotiating the purchase of 30 million coronavirus vaccine doses from Russia and India after regulators made it easier for the treatments to win emergency use authorizations. Until now, only the AstraZeneca or Oxford shot and China's CoronaVac have been permitted in Brazil, the second hardest hit country after the US, with more than 226,000 deaths from COVID-19. Brazil's health surveillance agency said it would no longer require final phase 3 trials to be carried out in Brazil, clearing the way for the emergency authorization of the vaccinations. The health ministry said it is meeting with representatives from Russia and India on Friday to finalize details of a deal which would see some 18 million doses delivered this month and 12 million more in March. Brazil began vaccinations on January 17, starting with the medical workers, the indigenous population, and the elderly. And finally, on the international scene, the Biden administration on Wednesday reaffirmed U.S. recognition of opposition leader Juan Guaido as Venezuela's legitimate president and ruled out negotiations anytime soon with President Nicolas Maduro, branding him a dictator and calling for free and fair elections. In the most extensive explanation of President Joe Biden's Venezuela policy since he took office on January 20, State Department spokesman Ned Price said one of the main thrusts would be, I quote, targeting regime officials and their cronies involved in corruption and human rights abuses, end of quote. This suggested that the new administration could stick to former President Donald Trump's sanction campaign in some form, despite its failure to force Maduro from power. And that is all for your regional news. Thank you for joining. Back to you, Tamika.